Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Andrew Craig. I am Wisconsin DNR's Watershed Planning and statewide coordinator for water quality trading, adaptive management, and the multi-discharge variance option. I'm one of 3 statewide coordinators, and this webinar presentation is on the multi-discharge phosphorus variance option available to point sources. This is a funding source that is available for county land conservation departments to apply for. And with the funds provided from this variance option by point sources, counties can use it to reduce non-point sources of pollution and reducing phosphorus. The basics of the multi-discharge variance are as follows. This option was submitted by Wisconsin DNR legislature, and EPA reviewed and approved the multi-discharge variance option in February 2017. It is only a 10-year effective variance. It will sunset in February of 2027. It may be renewed at that time, but we need to wait until we get closer to 2027 to see if it is necessary to renew it or not, which will require additional EPA approval. For point source discharges in our state, this is an option that point source dischargers can sign up for, and then if they are approved and eligible for the multi-discharge variance for meeting their phosphorus limits, the variance requirements are included in their permit, discharge permit, when it is reissued. Permits are typically issued every 5 years. One of the options which we're going to be talking about today is dischargers are selecting the county payment option, which in lieu of meeting stricter phosphorus discharge limits at the point source, they are paying $50 per pound approximately of phosphorus they discharge per year. And then those funds are then available for counties to sign up for. In 2019, approximately $900,000 was available for counties to apply for it from multi-discharge variance funding. Approximately, I believe, 50 point sources have signed up so far for the multi-discharge variance, and more may continue in the future. On the county side, the funds are available for applying for them. All counties have to do is go onto DNR's webpage, which is, if you type in the keywords MDV, the webpage will come up, and there's an application form counties can sign up for to use the fund, to apply for and receive the funding. Each year, counties must apply for the funds. It's not just one and you're done. You need to continue it each year to maintain your eligibility. A main requirement of the MDV is, if counties receive funds, is they must develop and implement a plan to reduce phosphorus sources per making offers of cost share to meet NR 151 performance standards and prohibitions. And I'll go into more detail on those in other slides coming up. To give you a basic overview, point sources that sign up for the multi-discharge variance, they must do 2 things. They must reduce their phosphorus discharge at their plant to a limited basis during each permit term that they have MDV coverage or eligibility. And the second thing they have to do is implement a watershed project that reduces non-point source phosphorus pollution. And there's 3 possible pathways for those watershed projects, which you see here. They can do something directly themselves, they can work with a third party, or they can make payments, as I stated in the previous slide, to county land conservation departments at a rate of $50 per pound of phosphorus they discharge. So to talk about the county option, which is the focus of this webinar, MDV is a funding source counties can apply for and receive those funds. those counties that do apply must agree to meet the MDV requirements of the MDV legislation to the best of their ability. The purpose of it is to provide additional funding resources for counties to reduce non-point source pollution, including paying for some of the staffing costs. This is not just simply for cost sharing practices. It also helps pay for some of the staffing costs related to it. Counties that sign up for and submit plans for the MDV option, those plans must be reviewed by DNR, and counties are also required to provide annual reports to show how they are implementing the plans that DNR approves to reduce phosphorus loading. Last bullet, if a county does fail to meet MDV requirements, it may affect their ability to receive future multi-discharge variance funding. DNR is kind of the custodian or the administrator of this program, and if the county is clearly not meeting its obligations, DNR has the ability to stop or reduce funding and redirect it to other counties who are meeting their obligations. So let's talk about the county plan requirements under the multi-discharge variance. The first main requirement is the plan that the counties submit must be consistent with their land and water resource management plan. Most land and water resource management plans have soil and water conservation goals. The multi-discharge variance plans can be very similar to that. Next item is the watershed that's selected for the multi-discharge variance plan has to be focused within a watershed with some of the highest phosphorus loading within the county. It is recommended a HUC 12 size watershed be selected to make that determination. If you're a county with a approved TMDL, many of these HUC 12 size watersheds have already been prioritized based on phosphorus loading, and the county can simply use the TMDL report to justify or demonstrate it's a high TP loading watershed. The other two requirements of the plans are to describe what practices will be used to reduce phosphorus sources and estimate the reductions of phosphorus after those practices are implemented, as well as to describe what 151 agricultural performance standards will be met by the management practices. Last item for county plan requirements is to submit a projected financial budget, and I'll get into this a little bit more in the next slide. Of the total funds received, up to 35% can be used for staffing costs, and the remaining 65% must be used to fund actual cost sharing of practices. So here's a little more explanation of the 35-65% split under MDV funding. On the left side, you see for the green, 35% of the total amount of funds received by a county can be used for the items there on the left, and the remaining 65% of the total funds received can be used to implement practices to reduce non-point source pollution. The practices are focused on agriculture only, and like I said earlier, they must result in compliance with specific NR 151 performance standards. The next one down, the bulleted item that's in bold, counties within a approved TMDL area can also use MDV funds to go beyond the NR 151 requirements to try to meet the TMDL reductions, which is in many TMDLs in our state, that is a common trend. NR 151 won't quite get you there. Additional practices will be needed to meet TMDL phosphorus reduction goals. Last item, the practices can also be used, cost can cover some of the staff costs for designing, construction, post-construction, or inspection of the practices. So here's a timeline saying, okay, when a county applies, which you'll see on the left side of the screen, there's typically a 28-month timeline from when a county applies to participate in MDV to when they first have to submit an annual report explaining what happened with the funds that were received. In this timeline, working from left to right, on January 1, that's when counties, that's the deadline for counties to submit a form saying they want to be eligible and receive MDV funding. 2 months later, March 1st, payments are received by DNR, and then they are directed, but DNR directs the point sources to direct funds to counties that sign up for the multi-discharge variance option. A year later, a full year can elapse before a county must submit a watershed plan to explain how it wants to use the funds it received up to a year earlier. And then following an approval of a watershed plan under the MDV, there's 14 months before an annual report is required to be submitted by counties explaining, here's what we plan to do, here's what we actually accomplished with the MDV funds we received in, for example, the 2020 year. So that kind of gives you a timeline, total 28 months, and how it unfolds for counties. As I mentioned earlier, the multi-discharge variance also requires counties to report to DNR what it has accomplished and what it plans to do with MDV funds. The plans and reports submitted under MDV can be submitted to DNR using our BITS or BITS system, which is an online tool that counties can sign up to access. It's free and available, and it's basically a spatial database that is tailored to meet the MDV requirements for submitting plans and reporting on how plans have been implemented. DNR staff will review and approve both plans and reports submitted by counties for consistency with the multi-discharge variance requirements. So this slide kind of gives you a snapshot of where we stand in May of 2020. There's actually 112 approved point sources or facilities that have been approved for the multi-discharge variance as of May 2020. In terms of funds available in 2018, approximately $619,000 was available, and a total of 25 counties applied for those funds. In 2019, the amount of MDV money increased to $938,000, and 34 counties applied. This year in 2020, we don't have any confirmed estimates yet because the amount of funds is based upon how many point source dischargers apply for and receive approval for the MDV, and it's based upon how much phosphorus they discharge. So as we get closer to the November, December timeframe of each calendar year, we'll have a better idea of what the estimate will be for 2020. So that is the MDV Basics. This is a list of our different DNR contacts for the multi-discharge variance, as well as water quality trading and adaptive management coordinators. So the names you see here, these are the 3 statewide coordinators. Here I am, and here's my other 2 counterparts. We all work out of the Madison office. And then there's some regional contacts based upon where you're located in the state, in the north, the west central, the northeast, and so on and so forth. This information is available on DNR's web pages, and I will show you that next. So this is DNR's web page for the multi-discharger variance, and this is the home page that you can navigate to get more information about what is the MDV, who's eligible, what resources counties have or are available for counties, as well as some other information about implementation. I recommend if you're considering as a county to participate in the MDV, you go to this webpage and click on County Resources, which kind of gives you an overview of some of the items in this webinar today, as well as this item right here. We have a whole guidance document we've put out for the multi-discharge variance. Chapter 3 is devoted exclusively to counties about what the requirements and expectations are for counties that participate in the MDV. So that is the webpage. Thank you very much for listening to this webinar. And if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact your regional or statewide multi-discharge variance coordinator. Thank you.